9 o'clock.
Yes.
I would like to call the recommending meeting to order. Today's date is May 18th, 2010, 9 a.m. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, we'll move to the first line item of business, which is bill number 2010-18, which levies assessments for Special Improvement District number 1516, Fremont Street Maintenance District, Las Vegas Boulevard to 8th Street, sponsored by Step Requirement. Staff?
This is the standard annual maintenance for this SID, the Fremont Street Commercial Area Vitalization Project. Everything is in order. We have staff here from the SID division if you have any questions.
Okay. Is there anyone here from staff that's willing to speak or would like to speak on this item? If so, please come forward. State your name for the record. Is there anyone here from the public that's wishing to speak on this item? Please come forward. State your name for the record. Okay. With that being said, Councilman?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Bill number 2010-19 corrects an error in the mandatory spay-neuter ordinance, set the required age for spay-neuter procedures at 4 months rather than 6, proposed by Bradford R. Jerbick, City Attorney. Staff?
Yes, committee members, this is a cleanup item. As you'll recall, last year there was an ordinance adopted, and in the course of that discussion there was a lot of debate about whether the required age ought to be 4 months rather than 6. We had prepared a possible amendment for that council meeting in anticipation of a change towards 6. As you'll recall, the debate was had and the number was set at 4. We were successful in changing the title and the summary back to 4, but an unnamed person in the city attorney's office forgot to change the number in the text, so it was published and adopted at 6 months, even though the council had understood and the presentation was made that it would be at 4 months. So we are coming forward now to correct it in accordance with the actual vote of the council, so that we can enforce the ordinance at 4 months. The rest of the ordinance obviously was correct, so it's been enforced. The ordinance is also currently available to be enforced for animals over 6 months, but this is to clean up and take it back to 4 the way the council intended. So we recommend approval.
Okay. I want to know who is the unnamed individual in the city attorney's office that made that mistake.
That was me, Councilman.
Okay, great. For the record.
Val Steed.
All right, thank you, sir.
Clear enough?
Is there anyone here willing to speak on this item? So please come forward and state your name for the record. Okay, seeing none. Councilman?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Bill number 2010-20 revises and updates zoning-related application and hearing procedures, generally provides that Planning Commission action on most special use permits is final unless appealed or requested for review by a member of the City Council, and provides a procedure for required reviews of approved zoning applications. Text 37402, proposed by Margot Willer, Director of Planning and Development. Staff?
Clint Fagg with the Planning and Development Department. I'll apologize for the length of my presentation this morning, but there's a lot of substantial changes here, and I'd like to go through those with you. First of all, the reason for this text amendment is to address 2 recommendations from the Development Review Process Efficiency Analysis. As you'll recall, the DRP Efficiency Analysis report was accepted by Council in January of this year, and it has 95 recommendations about how we can improve our development review process. As I had mentioned, this addresses specifically 2 of those items. Recommendation number 3 is relative to special use permits having to go to City Council, and recommendation number 18 is relative to our appeal process and the fact that it's not clearly delineated in our code. First of all, let me address the changes to special use permits. What we are proposing to do is that special use permits may be final action at Planning Commission, just as the City of Henderson, North Las Vegas, and the county do. However, in terms of our operational procedures, we will continue to forward our recommendations to City Council members 6 weeks prior to Planning Commission, just as we're doing now. And then after Planning Commission decision, City Council will still have 10 days to pull those items forward if they so desire. And so while Planning Commission may have final action on those items, City Council members will still have the ability to pull those items forward if they feel that it does require additional review. There are certain cases where special use permits will be required to go to City Council regardless. That's where they're required by prior council action or wherever there is a special use permit that's associated with either a site plan review, a rezoning, or a general plan amendment. So in certain cases, you will still see those at City Council. Another thing that we are doing here to the code is relative to the appeal process. As I had mentioned, our appeal process is not always clearly identified in the code. And so what we are doing is we are delineating that process for all of our applications. One of the specific corrections that we're making there relative to the appeal process is wherever there is a denial of an administrative deviation or a denial of a decision made by the Director of the Planning and Development Department, it clearly defines that those applications must come forward as a variance. And so that's one of the specific changes we are making to the appeal process. There are other elements that we are also changing here. One is relative to the site development plan review process. Currently, there is not a threshold for site development plan reviews, and so any new construction technically is required to go before Planning Commission and City Council. What we are proposing to do here is that we will exempt new construction of 5,000 square feet or less, or residential construction of 4 dwelling units or less, or additions to existing buildings, wherever there are no variances or no waivers associated with those projects. And so those will be able to be reviewed and approved by the Planning Department. Just as with other applications, Council will be notified of those actions and will have 10 days to request that those items be pulled forward if they do feel that they need additional review. So there is still that fail-safe for administrative actions that are taken. Also, relative to modifications to approved site plans, we are clarifying the language there to say that the director may approve reductions in square footage, height, or density where there are no variances or waivers that would be associated with that. However, the director cannot cannot approve any increases above 10% or any material change to the appearance of an approved site plan. So consequently, if someone were to come in and say, you know, originally we were going to do stucco and stone, and now we're just going to do a tilt-up, tin shed, they wouldn't be able to make those type of changes. Relative to variance applications, there is currently language in the code that says that any parking reductions or additions to existing structures have to go to City Council. We're removing that language. However, again, those can still be pulled forward by City Council. And then with variance applications, any associated with a site plan, general plan amendment, or rezoning must automatically go to City Council. And then finally, the last substantial change is relative to required reviews. While City Council has been doing required reviews, we've never formally delineated that process in our code. And so we are adding a section to Title 1918 which spells out the required review process. And basically, it just codifies the process that we're currently using. It's just that we feel it would be important to have that in our code so everyone is aware of that process. Those are the substantive changes that we are proposing, and I'll go ahead and take your questions now.
Is there anyone here from the public willing to speak on this item? If so, please come forward, state your name for the record. No one? Flint, let's go back to the special use permit, because this is one area of the code that concerns me specifically, being that the council must stay on top of special use permits as it relates to our neighborhoods and our district, specifically in certain areas, whether it be beer and wine. It used to be child care facilities, but now the state is handling that to date. Currently, Planning and Development sends over the cell tower applications as far as 10 days, giving the council 10 days to make a determination as to whether or not we want to see it come before council. And if not, then it moves on through its regular course. Is that the same procedure in which you all are proposing in this text amendment as it relates to the special use permit?
Special use permits will go to Planning Commission, and Planning Commission may have final action. However, as I mentioned, we will notify council offices prior to going to Planning Commission of the special use permits and our recommendation. So you all will have an opportunity to review those applications prior to Planning Commission. And then also, after Planning Commission, you will still have 10 days to review those or review the decisions of the Planning Commission. And if you so desire, you may pull those items forward to City Council. So again, you will still have the opportunity to pull those items to City Council if you do feel that they need additional public input or additional review.
And just for clarification, as far as the reason for going down this path is to establish a more streamlined process for the development community?
Exactly.
Okay.
And this also puts us in line with what Henderson and North Las Vegas and the county are doing as well in terms of their approval process of special use permits.
Okay. Councilman?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Motion?
Motion approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill number 2010-21 updates the hearing procedures of the municipal code relating to parking infractions proposed by Bradford R. Jerbick, City Attorney. Staff?
Yes, committee members, this is a bill that we brought to you last year in a slightly different format. We have a situation under our parking infractions code where a person who receives a parking citation can either pay it immediately or request to pay it in installments. If they desire to contest the citation, they have had two choices in the past, one of which was to opt into a hearing officer process, and the other option was to basically do nothing and wait for the city attorney and the court to proceed in a civil case against them. That is a process that hasn't worked. We thought it would work 15 or 20 years ago when it was adopted, but it hasn't been productive from the attorney's office. It hasn't been palatable for the court. It's just not working. So people have learned that by not doing anything and sitting around and waiting for a case to get filed against them, basically they don't have to pay their tickets. So we've looked at other people's processes and decided to take away the second option to go to municipal court. Now all cases, if someone wants to contest a parking citation, they will have a hearing officer, which is already a process already established, and so we recommend approval.
I have a question for you. When you
Okay.
say you looked at other people's processes, are you referring to other states or communities?
Communities. Reno does something like this with the hearing officer process. It's difficult to find a model here in Southern Nevada because other jurisdictions typically continue to treat them as criminal citations rather than civil, and so they are going through the process just like they do for a moving violation where you go to court. And we took the parking violations out of the criminal arena several years ago because it wasn't working out in municipal court. So this is kind of a follow-up. We learned that it didn't work the way we'd set it up.
Okay. Is there anyone here willing to speak on this item? So please come forward, state your name for the record. Seeing none. Councilman?
I have a question. So these are definitely civil
Yes.
cases, these parking. What did you try a year ago that didn't work?
I'm sorry, I meant to explain that. We had proposed requiring the posting of a $500 appeal bond, whereby if someone wanted to actually go to a court to have their ticket heard instead of going to the hearing officer, they could do that in municipal court, but in order to make sure that they showed up, and in order to justify the process, we had proposed a $500 appeal bond. It came to this committee here. There was concern about the amount of it in relation to the typical size of a parking violation. We also determined as well that we weren't sure that anybody could get that kind of parking bond from any bond writer, any surety company, and we weren't sure that the court was geared up to hear those anyway. So we tucked our tail, so to speak, and went back and tried something else.
So under this scenario, somebody receives a ticket, they want to contest it, they go to a hearing officer. Is there an appeal process beyond the hearing officer?
No.
It's final.
It's fine. We have Sherry from our Finance and Business Services Division here to answer any questions you have about the way the current process works.
So
but-
once the hearing officer says it's a $200 fine, then what happens? Then what if they don't pay it?
It becomes a collection item. The city can refer it for collection or use the other means. Conceivably, the city could file a case in municipal court or some other court, but I doubt that would happen. There are also remedies available for flagging someone's, is it registration or driver's license? Registration, yeah, at DMV. So.
Okay. And you don't have any concerns about somebody not being able to appeal hearing officers?
Well, obviously, anybody who's unhappy with their result, I guess, is going to feel that way. I figure we could try it, and if it doesn't work, if we have complaints, we can come back to the drawing board. But this is just a way to pick up all those cases that we're not proceeding with now.
But it's not working going to court.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not working.
I don't think the court's set up for it. They tell us that their computer system isn't geared up for it, so it just hasn't worked.
Okay, I'll motion to approve.
Okay. Before we take the motion, I would like to hear from Sherry in relation to the boot program. I know, and I shouldn't be putting this on the record, so I'm not going to tell on myself, but I lived in a community where I received a number of parking violations, and to come out and there was a boot on my vehicle. I haven't seen that in Las Vegas. Can you speak to us in relation to if in fact we do have the boot system, if it works, if we don't have the boot system, why not as another alternative to the parking violations that's before us today?
Okay, Sherry Bonnet, Department of Finance. We do have a boot program in process right now. What it does is if you have 5 citations or you have a balance of $500, once an officer sees that vehicle, if a violation comes up while they're ticketing it, they do have the ability to boot that vehicle. They call our office to see if it's still owing, and then we approve the boots. The boot program has been successful by 73%. We are getting more aggressive on the boots because we have over 6,400 boots sitting out now in the city limits. We're looking at getting a
You said 6,400 boots?
6,400 accounts that require a boot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, vehicles that are moving around Las Vegas that we're not getting. We are looking into what we call a license recognition system, which is going to allow us to go buy a vehicle and just scan the license plate, and if they're on that boot list, it's going to be notified immediately instead of waiting for the registered owner to commit another violation. Because you could have one violation and not be on the boot list, but we never get your car because you haven't violated the law again or you haven't got a parking infraction. So that's the way it's currently working.
And once an individual receives a boot on their vehicle, is there additional fees that's attached to the boot, or you must pay the infraction in order to get the boot removed from your vehicle?
Okay, they have two choices. Yes, once we boot the vehicle, there is a $50 fee for the boot. Okay, when they call our office, they can do two things. They can either choose to leave the boot on. We will get them in with the next hearing from the hearing officer, and he can make a decision on whether those tickets should be reduced or not. Or if they want to get the boot off that day and not be towed the following day, they have to pay it in full.
Pay the entire infraction, including the boot fee.
Everything in full. The reason why I don't feel that them having to pay it in full is we send out 3 notices, even a boot notice, letting them know they're on that boot list so that they're aware of this. It's not like it's a secret. And it even says on the back of the tickets that failure to pay these citations within 30 days could result in immobilization or collection fees or a registration hold. So they've been informed from the get-go.
Okay. Thank you. There is a motion for approval on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. We are now down to citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come forward. State your name for the record. Seeing none. Councilman?
Motion to adjourn.